For 75 years, Farm Equipment Manufacturers Association members have been bringing choice, value, and innovation to agriculture. Dealers are more profitable with Shortline manufacturers, and customers prefer equipment from FEMA Shortline manufacturers.
When did the next big product innovation come out? That wasn't the rock picker. What was next in the
next big product was a big one. It was the bulldozer blade, and the bulldozer blade was made. And I'm gonna say, Paul, it was about 1969, and it was a wonderful blade. So back then in '69, there was 2-wheel drive tractors and some 4-wheel drive tractors. There was no such thing as power, front wheel assist, that sort of thing. So Dad made a very simple blade that manually angled. He went straight, manual angle by pulling pins, and trying to hook up as best he can to the frame of the tractor, and made it safe for the tractor, and basically come up with 8, 9, 10-foot blades, even a 12-foot blade a little later on. It was so popular, John Deere came knocking and said, look, we're interested in you. And remember, we're now in Regina with a bit of a factory. We're interested in you building a dozer blade for us with John Deere colors. And that was a real boost for us. And it wasn't, back then, negotiating with John Deere, they didn't want a lot of machines or a lot of dozer blades. And Dad says, hey, if we're going to build for you, we need some quantity. And they argued over that. Well, as it turns out, the quantity was so big, we were building 24/7. They were going all over the place. It's thousands of dozer blades. And then, of course, we had that relationship. I think we built Green until about the mid 80s. And then I know I was involved because I was a marketing manager. We had an allied agreement with John Deere, which basically means that, okay, we're just going to go back to yellow Degelman dozer blades, but then John Deere recommends to their dealer, look, if you're going to buy a blade by Degelman's, and we had an agreement with that, and that went on for many, many years. And then and now we don't have the agreements with dozer blades, but it's a wonderful product. It takes a lot of research and development because tractors, they're always changing, so you're always modifying. And then, of course, front wheel assist tractors came up, and then suddenly you got to get around the front axle, and it's a little bit more difficult. 4-wheel drives, and then we went to, God, what do we do now, Paul? 20 feet dozer blades right now, and there's 6-way hydraulic angle, and they're complex.
We're building. So Dad's first dozer blade probably sold for what, $2,500 kind of thing. Well, we're building $100,000. We're building dozer blades that are $100,000 right now. But the dozer blade, like a rock picker, came from necessity, Mike. It was, you got to think, back in 1969, our roads weren't developed with nice big ditches, so we had snow. Farmers had to feed their cattle. They had to open up the road to get their kids to school, get the school bus in, and to go get groceries. So all of these farms were remote, and everybody was struggling, and Dad was in that pool. He was with them, and he needed a blade too to feed the cattle and to unload grain and to for the farm to function. They were the dozer blade opened up the farm and got their kids to school and got to the grocery stores, and again, it was a bit of a life changer for these people. You got to like, now the roads are good, and the snow, we don't get the snow pattern that we used to maybe, and the roads didn't block. Well, those roads are little trails, and he was doing V plows to push open, and Dad was that kind of guy. Like, when he was a young man, he was on a D6 cat with a V blade, and he was opening roads. So how he designed was from either the seat of a cat or the seat of a tractor, and his imagination would kind of, that's where I don't think all his thoughts were at the drafting board. I think a lot of his ingenuity and his innovation came from watching those blades and kind of thinking about his neighbors and like, okay, well, what could I do that would help these people? And a dozer blade, like a rock picker, it got these guys into business. Like it opened them up. So it was just a different time.
You know, Mike, all your legacy customers, like they must have the same thing. They're all solving a problem, aren't they? Like there was a problem out there that they need to solve, and just like Mr. Kinsey or Kinzaba, I should say, and all the people that you interviewed, they're all the same. They're like my dad. They're just like they're just solving a problem, and they're designers and innovators, and that's what they're doing. So it's the same kind of story.
Jack, I was thinking about Dad, like, you know, a little later on, the business was going well, and he bought another farm and he built this thing up, and this is in the 80s, and just the kind of the personality of what Dad is. You know, he's in the 80s and he's running 600 horsepower tractors with 51 feet of air seeder, which was, and packers. He had 100 feet from the nose of the tractor to the back of the packer, and putting systems together. And the neighboring farmers were looking at him and like, you're crazy. You need a quarter section to turn that rig around. And he just didn't phase him. He was building slough pumps, you know, like we were in some tough land where we had lots of hills, lots of sloughs, and he was building I don't know if you ever heard of this thing. It's called a super slough sucker. And this is one of his crazy inventions. It took R&D out for a year, and he built this thing. He's like, I don't care, I'm building this. And people were like, just like, Wilford, you should be seeding. What are you doing pumping sloughs? And it didn't phase him one bit. He's like, he's innovating. He's trying things. He's not in it to get wealthy on the farm. He's in it to push it. And he pushed it.
It's called stubborn, Mike.
It did not matter. I remember being 15 years old on a 600 horsepower 1150 versatile, and didn't have my driver's license, and he's like, oh no, you go do this and you get going. And honestly, neighbors would look at us and think, yes, Wilford's successful, but he must have a screw loose. This is crazy what he's doing. And didn't affect him. He didn't listen to it. He did his thing. And he wanted to push it. He just pushed it. Wouldn't you say, Jack? That's his personality. Oh, yeah, yeah. You know, we had tried to talk him out of it. Dad, what are you doing? You're shutting down R&D. We got dozer blades to mount. We got shit to do here. It's like, no, we need this pump. We need this super slew sucker or Typhoon or whatever he was doing at the time. And we all kind of went along with it. And he didn't hit every star. There's lots of stuff that, you know, cut it up, throw it in the bush, start something else. He wasn't scared to fail. You know, you don't build stars all your life. You hit a few of them, and he hit a few. But there's lots of things that you could probably pull out of the bush now that weren't commercially a success that you could probably make a success now. You know, he had dozer blades with, you know, running gauge wheels and brush blades. And anyways, it was amazing. Like, he was quick. Like, our R&D, when they do a prototype, it's factory. It looks like production, right? Like, because of software and technology. Well, his prototypes weren't perfect, but he got them in the field that season, and he was learning from them. So that was his thing. He loved trying things, and he had some good people around him. Like, you know, he had a few people around him that, you know, went deep with him. Donnie Stevenson, Miles Evans, those guys that, you know, and they added to his designs. Wilf would come in with a sketch. This is kind of what I'm thinking, and these guys would marry those lines, and they would help him put this stuff together. And shit, they were prototyping. They were prototyping in 3, 4, 6 months, and they didn't care. They didn't go to production right away, but it'd maybe take them 4 times to get it before they went to production. But they knew they were on something. You know, they would make their changes, and they were quicker than we are. You know, like you know, today our prototypes are beautiful. Like they're like I said, they're factory, but it takes us, you know, it's a little bit more methodical. But I often think that, you know, if we could be as quick as what Wilf was and with his team, oh my God, you know, the power of that, of speed to the market is just so important. Timing.
So after the blades, then tell me about the next product innovation he was responsible for and what the timing would have been.
Well, we were always expanding our rock picker line. So there was several rock pickers, and then, you know, there's a rock rake, rock diggers. So we were expanding that. And of course, dozer blades are expanding also with various tractors and different styles of blades. But next is probably tillage. Like Dad came up with, you know, like chisel plows and cultivators. And we did that for many years until, like, we've always been kind of a Western Canada company, and that's kind of where our tillage was sold. But when there was an introduction of the air seeder, and the air seeder really came from Australia, we had to make a decision. Do we continue with tillage and get into the air seeder business, or do we actually stop making tillage? And we stopped making tillage. But it was a good, successful product. It had a pretty good lifestyle, not lifestyle, timeline to it. So it was well. After that, Paul,
Western Canada in the 80s, and this is kind of getting into late 80s. Jack can kind of confirm it, but farming sucked in Western Canada. Farmers were going down. They could not make a living on wheat and barley and oats anymore, and they were conventional farming. And what happened is the farmers started making a transition, and they were starting to grow pulse crops. They were starting into peas and lentils, and again, they needed something that would make their farm would make that job of growing this new crop that they had no idea how to grow this stuff. They had, these legumes, these lentils and peas, they grew very close to the ground. And to harvest them, you have to put your headers right down on the ground, or your swathers right on the ground. And Dad started making a land roller. And a land roller was a necessity. In order to farm this stuff, you had to flatten out your ground, and you had to push those stones down and allow these farmers not to ingest rocks into their expensive combines. And that's what this next innovation kind of was we had to keep pace with what the farmer's doing and stay with them and help them through that kind of transition. And I would say that was probably, Jack, that was probably that next one. And it kind of coincided with the Strawmaster, which was a huge success. It changed our company. And that was necessity as well, Mike. That the farmers in Western Canada were changing from tillage to minimum till, and they still needed to do something to control their ground and to control their weeds and to keep their fields in decent shape. Like when you've been farming all your life and you've been taught to summer, fall, take your land out of production and to clean it up for the following year, to continuous cropping every year, that's a big step. So you had all kinds of residue problems. You had trash. You didn't know what to do with all this. You can't burn things. Nobody wants to burn. And Dad started working on a heavy harrow, and this was a new thing. There was a couple little harrows out there. But again, Dad went to a no-nonsense approach on this Strawmaster. It was really nice and simple, super tough. You could run these. They ran better at 12 mile an hour than they did at 6 mile an hour. So when you're running things at high speed, shit happens. And he made it so tough that you could run it. He would tell us in the tractor, you go as fast as you can pull this thing. We were doing 16 mile an hour, pulling this 70, 90 feet of this heavy harrow with 600 horsepower. And it was just, the faster you went with it, the better job it did. And that changed our company from a company that was in debt to trying to figure out how to make payroll to expansion, paid off the banks, put us in a beautiful position to grow the company. And
what year would that have been, Paul?
Yeah, we started making lead rollers in 92. When we started making Strawmasters, in the very first Strawmasters we ever sold was December 1993. And that's our very first start of the Strawmaster. We still make them today, and we actually make them for John Deere.
Yeah, that's a green. There's a green Strawmaster now, and we have other models that we've expanded on it, where we kind of do a disc on demand in front with harrow on the back. We have 7 row. We're Strawmasters like Kleenex when it comes to harrows in Western Canada, which is primarily where they're used. They're going to go and they're going to go grab their Strawmaster, whether it's a John Deere or a different brand. It's a Strawmaster's a Strawmaster. Dad did the development on it. He had great guys in R&D that built a nice finished machine, and everybody in the company, like we were in trouble. Like we were having a tough time making payroll, and everybody pulled up their socks and went to town on this thing. We did demo after demo and show after show. The whole company rallied behind this product, and we made it a success. And I think it was like within 4 years we were doing like 600 of these things a year, and that's a lot of iron. That's a lot of processing.
What year did you get into the black?
Super big star.
Would it have been 95 that you turned the corner from being in the red into the black? Was it around that time, or?
It was 96 that we had our factory expansion. So we went from red to black in 95. It was an instant hit. It was just a miracle product for us. Couldn't make them. I think, Paul, we were making 500 machines the first year. Just couldn't believe it. Those are big machines too.
Big. You know what it was? It was when you talk to farmers and you told them that you could run this thing as fast as you want to run it, as fast as you can handle the bounce in the tractor. And we built 120 foot Strawmaster, and if you had the power to pull it, you could do 600 acres in about 3.5 hours. Because if you did the math at 12 mile an hour, you could get over 600 acres. I think it was 3.5 hours. So it was kind of people would shake their head. It's just like, what? And then what you could do with this is in the fall, you could, you can control your residue and your trash from your combine, because the combines weren't spreading the straw that they used to. And in the spring, if you wanted to get your ground warmed up and get some weeds growing and get some life going, Dad had a design where you can just kind of put some pressure down on this thing, and it did a light till. It was actually tilling. Yeah. It was a real versatile machine for the spring, for the fall. Anytime you wanted to clean things up, you pulled that Strawmaster, and it was a fun product to be a part of. Like, Jack and I, we were all over the place, and we were demoing and showing and selling. And for me, that was me being a part of kind of the first star. That was the first star I was a part of, with Dad. But that was just an awesome machine.
When you made that decision to get out of the tillage, do I have this right that in Western Canada they were moving to no tillage to zero seeding up there?
They were seeding with diskers and rod weeders and stuff like that, and then now the farmers were converting to the air seeder type of seeding. Okay, and we didn't have an air seeder. We didn't have a buck. We just had a cultivator and a chisel plow. So you know what? Back then it was just, okay, do we get into the air seeder business or do we get out of the tillage business? And I don't know if that was a good decision or not, but that's the decision that we made, is to just get out of the tillage business. We had lots of other things going. You got to remember, we were making grain carts and we're making land levelers and we're making a bunch of stuff.